Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Tales of Recovery podcast. There are certain conversations that remind us that healing isn't something we force, that it's something we allow. And today's guest is someone who's been working with a process that mirrors life itself, slow, alive, and deeply transformational. Austin Duran. Did I say that right? In my Mexican accent. He's the founder of the Fermenters Club, where he's been teaching people how to reconnect with their bodies through the ancient practice of fermentation. But this conversation goes far beyond that and far beyond food. We're going to explore the gut as intuition, fermentation as alchemy, and what it really means to trust the unseen processes that are always happening within us. If you've ever felt disconnected from your body, your rhythm, or your inner knowing, this conversation is an invitation to come back. Welcome to the podcast, Austin. I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks, Gris. Good to be here.
Yeah. So Austin and I met, I think we met at Katie Dubb's house at one dinner party, and you told me you make bread, and I was, oh my God, I want to make bread. I'm having this book. I teach people how to make bread. So you came to the house and you taught like a group of 12 of us how to make sourdough bread. And then it's like the sourdough party everywhere. And now you have your book out, Fearless Fermenting. It hadn't been out yet. Let's show it to everyone. And we'll put a picture on it. It's, I don't know how much everybody here listening understands the importance of gut health, but I've been in this journey of, trying to feel better and healing intergenerational issues with thyroids from the women that have so much stress in my life, and grandma, great grandma, there's a lot of that autoimmune thyroid stuff is really related to stress and the gut. When I started healing my gut, I would say 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, everything changed. Everything was easier to do. My inner work, the healing work, energy. So I don't know if you want to tell us about how you got into it or how that works. Did it start because you were also trying to seek your own personal wellness? So yeah.
Yeah, great. Whenever we get together, there's so many different things that go on, even just in the introduction. So I appreciate that. So yeah, my journey, I've always been like enamored with food, but I've never worked professionally in the business. But around maybe the early 2000s, I wanted to start to understand a little more about where our food came from. I just became curious, what is organic, local, seasonal, nutrient dense, all the things, all the things you read on a package, and, what's real and what's maybe more marketing, fluff.
Right.
And on that journey, I was also trying to discover a diet that was most attuned to my own body, and what I've come to learn is that diets are basically like religious beliefs. Like everybody has their own and they're fairly convicted about them. Now, of course, we can always evolve and change over time. But so I was like searching for, different diets that worked for me. There was a period where I went through what I called the no four-legged animal diet. So I would eat like animals that have less than 4 legs or animals that have more than 4 legs. So like seafood and chicken and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And
I was like thinking, who has?
I know everybody's
bird?
Like, what has more than 4 legs? Like shrimps and lobsters and all that, or no legs like fish. But
right.
So that seemed to work for a while, but it was just more like a vague, maybe it's not right to eat animals. It wasn't a dogmatic, like veganistic approach. And so that worked for a while. And then I went back and then I kind of discovered, okay, how you raise the animal is as important as, what the nutrient content is. And so that's when I started understanding about, wow, we're raising our animal conventionally in horrible conditions. And like, this is well before I understood the energetic, repercussions of that. But anyway, so that was probably my intuitive reason why I gave up meat without yet knowing it. And then I kind of came back later, and on that journey, I found a group that kind of like studied traditional cultures, and every indigenous culture. His name is Weston A. Price, the foundation's named after him. And he went around the world at a time when industrialized food had been invented. And so he was basically chasing industrialization, and he could find intact indigenous cultures where they were still eating traditionally. And then when the flour, sugar gets introduced, within a generation, he started to see health deleterious, like health decay. So anyway, that was his life's work. And what he distilled down was that, certain things like nutrient dense, all the organs of the animal, if you're going to eat animal, the way you grow food, the certain special foods that are reserved for mothers and fathers to be, pregnancy. And they all had these things that were slowly eroding away from the Western culture. So fast forward to the 90s, a woman by the name of Sally Fallon decides to pick up the mantle. She created this nonprofit organization, which talked about all of the tenets that Dr. Price did back in the 30s and 40s in the 20th century. So that totally spoke to me for lots of reasons. From my, sort of my rebellious nature. I discovered I have a rebel gene. I think most of us do.
That's a good
most
thing.
of us that are friends nowadays, I think we have.
We
that
know what's up.
Exactly.
Or what we don't want to be up.
Right. Right. Exactly. And so,
what's the name of the book that she wrote?
He wrote a book. His book is getting geeky and technical. Nutrition and Physical Degeneration was his book from the 40s. Then she came out with the organization, and she wrote a seminal cookbook called Nourishing Traditions. And
I have that one.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that was from her, from Weston Price. I just had that book for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great book. So she was basically anti-politically correct, which is what they called it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now you'd probably call it anti-woke-ish, something like that.
Right.
And was like, I don't think it's right for us to be eating seed oils and highly processed things and, maybe energy dense food, but not nutrient dense. So anyway, she was one of my heroes, and she actually wrote a endorsement for my book and really influenced my life a lot. But I discovered that diet, and then among one of the tenets of those was fermenting food. So all of our ancestors fermented something depending on what part of the world they were in, what they had access to. So I made my first batch of sauerkraut, just shredded up some cabbage, made some salt. And that was it. Like, I'd never had anything like that growing up. Maybe the closest I had would be like a dill pickle, and maybe it was fermented, but probably it was a refrigerator pickle, right? So we can talk about that. There are different ways to preserve food. One that uses the live bacteria and one that doesn't. So anyway, it shifted my consciousness. So I didn't have a specific ailment I was going after, but I just started to feel better. It was subtle. And so when I started incorporating these live, raw, fermented foods, and then I just got like, okay, this is a rabbit hole. I'm going to be probably here for a while. So that was 2010. And so then I started Fermenters Club, which was more just like it sounds like a hobby. Let me get more of my friends involved in this. You'll make a bunch of sourdough bread. I'll make some pickles. We'll come together. We'll do these food swaps. So that was the initial genesis of it back in 2011. And then I was like, this is really profound, and there's so many traditions you could go down. So had a series of good kismet type meetings with people such as Sandor Katz. He's kind of like the godfather of the modern movement. Got to go to study with him for 5 days. I met Hannah Rumaha. Sorry, Hannah, if I messed up your name. She was the kombucha queen that's up in Los Angeles. So she went on, was already prominent, but went on to do bigger and better things. So that year, it was 2011 or 2012, I met like so many people that the universe was like, this is your path. I met Michael Pollan. I met, it was just like crazy.
Fun.
So it was great. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing this. So I was able to do it as a hobby for a while. And then in 2015, I was given an opportunity my background is actually finance and information systems. So totally different from what I'm doing now, but grateful for that. Got to do cool stuff. It's what got me to come out west. I was born and raised in Florida, but wanted to go work in Silicon Valley. That was a different self, different identity, which that's episode
part of the
6.
path.
That's our episode 6. And so I got a good job, got to see the world, wine and dine. And then after about 15 years, I'm like, this is just not doing it for me. Like I don't see what the work that I'm doing, how it's energetically helping my fellow man. Even within the company, it was somewhat of a more, like it was IT type of stuff. So I got an opportunity. Again, the universe gave me an option and said, okay, well, I had a new boss was coming in. She was assessing her team. She said, okay, well, I see your role, let me know. I would want you to be transparent. Let's say if maybe you only have 3 or 6 months left in this job, I would want you to tell me that. And I was like, I'm not going to get a better opening than that. So I have about 3 to 6 months left. And she was like, whoa. So anyway, transparency and truthfulness helps. She helped me like frame it. So that was a layoff, and I got basically a nice send off from the universe to kind of go and do this work full time. So now with no distractions, I was able to like start teaching workshops like the one that I did at your house. I do public workshops, and I just kept writing on the blog, which is now fermentersclub.com. Full website, hundreds of recipes on there.
Fermentersclub.com.
Fermentersclub.com, yeah. And then, like I said, it took me about 4 years to get Fearless Fermenting out. Beautiful book that is a cookbook meets textbook, as I like to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Can I see that?
Yeah, of course. Do you have a copy yet? I can't remember. Oh, well, that's yours then. So I got, again, and once I made the decision to do it, I attracted like a photographer who just does amazing work here in San Diego. I got a good, amazing editor, a layout designer, even my friend who helped me stage the food when we shot it all, because we shot all the food that's in the photos in there.
Beautiful.
And that was like, I was actually surprised that like, oh wow, this became more beautiful than I imagined. But I do remember a conversation or a conversation I had where I was trying to decide whether to just get the book out, because I was going through the throes of writing a book, and it's like after 2 years in, I was like, why is this thing not done? I was totally beating myself up about everything. I'm like, maybe I just release it as a textbook, and then I can add pictures later. And because coming from the startup world, the idea is to create what's called the minimum viable product, MVP. So like make it low fidelity, test whether there's demand, and if there is, then you continue
then you make
on.
It better.
So I was like, should I do it like that? And I sat with it for a while, and the answer that came back was make it beautiful. The world needs more beauty. And I was like, got it. So at that point,
look at this.
I mean, it's
sourdough granola.
Oh, I should have brought some over. I just made a batch sourdough granola squares. So it's a fun. Like I said, I have over 100 recipes on the website, but 77 or so made it into the book. It covers everything from. So it kind of the book layout, I wanted it to be a choose your own adventure type of thing. So it starts off with the very basic thing you can ferment, which would be like oats. So porridge. So that's the first of the series that just kind of tells you and gets your feet wet.
Porridge is fermented oats?
It's just fermented wheat, fermented oats, fermented grain. You just put it in water, set it on the counter. 2 days later, it's bubbly.
Like the overnight oats kind of?
Kind of like overnight oats. Yeah, exactly. But you can keep it going. So you can let it go 3, 4, 7, 8, 12 days, and it'll get a little
better
funky.
For your gut.
Well, it just continues to break down some of the anti-nutrients that are present in cereal grains, right? Such as wheat and oats and stuff. So yeah, it makes things more digestible, and then it adds the probiotics, right? So that's what's coming up, because all those cereal grains have a whole bunch of bacteria on them when they're growing, when they're harvested. And so when we revive them by putting them in a little bit of water, they then go back to doing their thing, and they ferment.
And
so that's like probiotics. At the very basic, that's what wild ferment. That's what a lot of our fermentation styles are, just a wild ferment. The bacteria hitched a ride on the food that we're making, and they just go to work.
And those recipes are in the book, the oats?
Yeah. So my point is that I call it the porridge portal, because it's your portal into more
into more of the
elaborate ferments. And then it somewhat gets a little bit more complex as you go through I tried to organize it in a manner that made sense. And so one of the things I created was called the flip to any recipe. You'll see what's called the Fermatrix. And it's a scale I developed.
The scale. I'm already in kombucha.
Yeah, you're about the middle. So the Fermatrix is a way to more or less rank the relative complexity of a ferment. So fermented foods are complex. So you've got factors such as how long does it take to ferment? How many different ingredients are there? How do you need a special culture like kombucha, or can you just wild ferment it like sauerkraut? Mm-hmm. Do you need special equipment to do it? And then for each one of the recipes, I applied a score to that, so you can kind of know, like, is this going to be easy or going to be somewhat harder? And so that's the Fermatrix score. I'm hoping it catches on. I want to sort of open source that to the world, so anybody who's doing fermented recipes I would love to use it, but also embellish it and make it better, because it was just my one man's point of view about how fermentation works. But so that came out 2024, and now it's just a matter of sharing it with the world.
This is great.
It's available on Amazon. I've got them signed hard copies that you can order directly from our website.
Put the links on here when we're done for sure.
Awesome.
And I'm going to stand it up. So
there you go.
This is great. I remember my book is coming out. Then it came out, and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome.
That's right. You were there on the journey with us.
Yeah. It's a lot of work, Why is this not recording? I'm going to kill myself.
Are we seeing the red light? I'm sorry, I'm not wearing my glasses.
No, it's the audio. No, that's recording. That should be fine. Okay. But okay, now we're both recording.
All right.
So we're talking about your book, and the book will have links on the podcast for you guys to either reach out to you to get a signed copy or Amazon or whatever. But it's a great book. I mean, I love cooking, so I like to have books that are easy, beautiful pictures. Okay, this one's hard. This one's not so hard. Let's go to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Depending on how adventurous you are on a given day, you can flip to the end and like, oh, miso, that's like the 21 on the scale, which is the largest number. So,
Oh, really?
let's suit
I
up for
love miso.
it's a good one.
It has
But
a recipe to make miso?
yeah, there is. So
Oh.
the reason why, so just to give you a comparison, 7 is porridge. So of the Fermatrix score, 21 is red miso. Those are in this
Okay.
book, the simplest and the most complex.
Okay.
So miso requires you to make koji, which is a cultured rice. And then, so you need to do that process first and then take that, add it to the cooked beans, and then make miso. So you can imagine culture is required, multiple phases, very long time, right? Because it takes about a year to ferment miso. So that's why those things all add up to get to the higher scores.
So you actually spend a year fermenting miso at your kitchen,
or longer. Yeah, I mean you could let it go a full extra year if you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, it traditionally it experiences all of the seasons. So that includes over a hot summer, and then it cools back down, and it's a very slow fermentation as well as it's also an enzymatic change. So the mycelium, which was on the koji, helps break down the proteins and the fats and the carbohydrates in the beans and develops that umami. Because that's, if you think of miso, it's really rich, savory flavor. And that slow, long process is what helps create
that flavor. Yeah, we'd always have miso soup growing up, whatever, at the Japanese restaurant. But my mom was diagnosed with cancer when she was like 50 something years old. And I don't know how she got this. I think one of her friends worked at this Casa de Luz place in Austin.
I remember that.
And we went
but
there.
There was one here too, I thought.
There was one here too.
Have coincidental name?
No, it was the same one. But I think they I think they closed it. I don't know, but I know
it's
still
not
in
there
Austin
anymore. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the one in Austin, we went there and they told her she had to eat the macrobiotic diet, because Mishokushi, or this, I don't know if I'm saying his name wrong or not, but he cured tons of people in Japan with this particular diet with a lot of ferments after they had cancer from radiation from the atomic bomb. And my mom we had miso, we had ferments. It was like a lot of kale and brown rice and some fish. That's it, like no meat, nothing from a can. And yeah, I don't think she was ever in better health than when she was doing that. And of course, we all ate that as well. So that was when just a couple of days ago, I was making miso-based, vegetables, but also the fish, miso-based cod or whatever. And I was thinking about her. So yeah, it's so fun to see. Oh my God, it takes over a year because it has so much flavor and so good for your gut. And now I know, because she would even make salad dressings with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You can, it's just the beginning. And soup is the most traditional one that Westerners know about, where you take a little bit, it's for those who don't know, it's a paste, right? It's like usually a brown paste or reddish paste. And then you add it to marinades or any number of things.
Yeah. Soup. So good. Super good. All right. So then let's talk a little more about, I guess, because I'm hearing you talk, and I'm just thinking like how food is medicine, and we're in this world where they want to give you pills for everything, and even the wellness industry, take this supplement, take that supplement, and use this peptide, this and that. But so maybe, I don't know if this is in your book, or if you want to talk a little bit about just how the gut, food is medicine, but also like how the gut is really the first brain that we have. And they say it's the mind, then the heart, then the gut, but I think it's the opposite way. We were talking about that earlier. Like the first brain is your gut. It's your intuition. It's how it's like, oh, I feel it in my gut, because that's really what's supposed to move us. Unless, ancestrally, if you weren't in tune with your gut, you were going to get eaten by a lion.
Right.
And we've just learned to dissociate and just eat whatever, take some Tums, fuck it, and so this gut is one of the most important parts of, I suppose, our human organic computer, or this beautiful, miraculous thing that we get to live in. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that, or?
Yeah, I mean, we could go in any number of directions, but yeah, like the phrase that came to mind is like meat Tauruses because we're like energetic Tauruses and we're surrounded by a little bit of meat in our flesh while we're alive. But yeah, I think that physiologically, our gut, exactly, we create most of the serotonin, which is one of the two pleasure chemicals our bodies produce, is made in the gut. And it's very important to have that ecosystem be able to digest our food and get the most out of food, but also as a protective barrier against, things that may be bad for us. So the gut microbiome, as it's called, which is the sum total of all of the microbes that live in our gut, this is old, I think, out of date information. We used to think that babies were sterile in utero, in their gut, but it turns out there is probably a microbial ecosystem going on as we develop, as embryos and fetuses. And then, but when we're born, if we come through the birth canal, we get a flush of our microbes from our mother. And then those take up residence in our gut. And then for about the first 1,000 days of our lives, the gut microbiome in each of us sort of develops. So it's important to eat the right foods that support what I call the good guys. Now, whenever I talk or teach stuff, I talk about good and bad, and I use the quotes because nothing in nature is really bad except when there's too much of it or it's out of context, right? So we'll say bad for humans if versus good, things that we know provide beneficial health reasons. So yeah, we need to be eating and living in a way that supports our gut health. So it's not just about eating food, right? But we do want to eat probiotic-rich foods such as fermented foods. But we also want to eat foods that the good gut bacteria will help them thrive, right? So, and that's not things like processed sugar, processed flour. Those are just very monotonous sort of like starches and sugars and stuff. And that's what can harbor, the bad baddies,
right.
the bad yeast and that sort of thing. And that has a huge effect. It ripples out, it's a literal energetic ripple out to the rest of our body. Like if our gut is not in good order, we're not going to feel well. It affects our mood and ultimately, our well-being. So, but in addition to eating, there are, of course, I think we could do a series of 10 episodes on this of things. It's about detoxifying your environment and keeping your vessel pure, right? And that means drinking clean water. That means, limiting what kind of foreign energetic toxins, whatever, So that all of those things conspire to help us be healthy. So it's very challenging in this day and age to do that.
It is.
Thus the whole sort of, and I my buddies who are biohackers, I think they know that I cannot stand that term biohacking for this reason. It implies that nature made something that needs to be worked on by our small monkey brains. In other words, it to me, that's the implication, like that we need to hack something because it wasn't designed right or isn't functional. Like, to me, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
But I get the spirit of what biohacking is. It's like if you got into some trouble, if you got a toxin, then this particular pill, whether it's activated charcoal or whatever, can help restore the balance. But anyway, so the biohacky type, those are important things to do, like whether it's cleaning our water, whether it's structuring our water, whether it's, all the sort of different diets that support our energetic body as well as our physical body, right? So, and I'm kind of rambling a little bit.
No, it is not. This is fascinating because it is like, it can be a full-time job to try to be healthy and strong. One of my clients, friends, came over this morning and he missed that we had a whole ceremony retreat in Temazcal last weekend. He was so bummed that he couldn't go, and he was telling me how do you take care of yourself? How do you do you're 20 people there, psychedelics and Temazcal and meditation. How do you take care of yourself? And I'm like, that's basically all I do is sunrise, watch the sunlight. After, yes, I do the red light sauna, but also I eat ferments, I eat clean, I get the mineralized water, or, try to not have the least amount of toxins. I'll go have fun once in a while and say, well, whatever, we're in a restaurant. I'm not going to be like, is this how, which I did for many years.
I've been that guy too.
Many years they were like, oh my God, I can't eat gluten. Gluten just doesn't go well. I'll eat it once in a while, but I know now. So like meditation and yoga and sitting outside and just not being on the phone for a while. So it can be a full-time job, unless what I'm seeing now is it's a lifestyle. right? So my lifestyle is like, okay, I call it the ancestral lifestyle, the simplest things, and they're free. They're
Yes,
free,
so profound, but
right?
I agree.
Just don't go shopping at the Walmart. You can't.
Wake up, step outside for 10 minutes with your bare feet. Like that, that's worth a lot of medical interventions and stuff, So agreed.
What's happening? Like, can you tell us, do you know, I don't know the whole eons and whatever that's happening when you're barefoot in the earth.
It's an electromagnetic interaction, right? So we are accustomed to, we could get into a whole other episode of why, but we're disconnected from the basic voltage of the earth. Okay. And so when we put our feet on the earth, we are
it's like you're charging.
Basically, well, recharging, but just balancing the charge, right? Because if we're walking around with things that keep us from connecting to the earth, then our voltage can vary, and that affects, we are electrical beings, Right. And so, yes, getting out first thing, getting in, maybe muddy, wet soil where water can help conduct electricity, just helps get us literally back into the earth, in phase with the earth,
So I think that's fascinating to me, and I just love the way you explain things. That's why I'm like, let's ask you, how are we? I know how we're unaware that we're electrical beings, but we are electrical beings. Like, we run on. I heard this, one of my teachers in yoga once say, when you're doing the sun salutation, he's like, we're going to charge up the battery, breathing and exhaling and moving, and breathing and exhaling and moving. And like after, 8 or 12 sun salutations, you're like, okay, I can keep going now. So how does, can you talk a little bit about that?
I can't. Well, I can. I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but I got to study with a man named Dan Winter. He is one of the most intelligent and kind fellows I've ever met. He's got a huge website. He's controversial because he's been talking about this stuff for 40 years about how we are energetic beings, and among many other people that I've studied with. But sorry, I lost my
Dan Winter. You were going to talk about how we're electrical beings and we don't really realize how we
Right. So did you know what piezoelectricity is? It's the the contact creates electrical charge.
Okay.
So we are piezoelectric. So when we walk, when we exercise, that's another reason why when we're walking on the ground, we're generating charge.
Okay.
We are, and everything from the DNA is a charge generator to the mitochondria within our cells we are basically fractal stacks of batteries, basically, all the way down to the electron and the atom.
Wow.
So, and yet we are in an environment in which these things can resonate, right? You've heard that term. So like everything operates at a frequency.
Yes.
So if we're doing things in harmony with the earth, we are said to be resonant with them. But we can introduce foreign man-made things like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth that are not resonant. They're doing their own function to give you your headphones or whatever, but they are out of phase with the Earth's rhythms, with our rhythms. So being bathed in too much of that just makes it more difficult for our bodies to be in our normal natural state, which is connected to the Earth via the Schumann resonance. That's the natural 7.83 hertz is the natural vibration of the Earth. So that's another reason to get back into that. I know I'm going down a lot
to put in your feet on the Earth.
Putting your feet on the
back
Earth,
and do that. Rhythm.
But yes, we are very much electrical beings, and we live in a soup of ether which is really just that's an older term for what we now know to be plasma, which is the fourth state of matter, which is the predominant state of matter in the universe. And all a plasma is you've got solid, liquid, gas, or the phases that we know of. A plasma is charged particles moving in a certain direction. That's all that it is. Electrons and positive ions. So anyway, the entire universe is made of plasma, including our beings. We've got sheaths, the bubbles where we end and where the extra, the next thing, begins.
Like the aura?
The aura, yep. And then the Earth, everything in nature that's alive has this sheath, right? The Earth has what's called the largest outer atmosphere, the magnetosphere. Wow. Then the sun has all of the planets are within the sun's membrane called the heliosphere. So basically everything is membranes, right? Everything is fractal from the atom to the cell to the solar system to the galaxy to the sun to the universe, right? So yes, it's important. And for whatever reason, modern science hasn't yet acknowledged the importance of electricity. And so that's why I believe they create irresponsible technologies like the 5G and the 6G, because those are even, I mean, that much assault of unnatural frequencies on our bodies is just not good for us, you know. And so anyway, that's
the way I see it is it takes you out of tune. Like if I'm playing the guitar, sounds horrible, and then I tune it, and then it sounds beautiful. Which is why I like to do a lot of meditation with sound, or just listening to the waves of the ocean, barefoot in the sea. Then your body kind of gets into tune, and then okay. But
that's resonance. When you feel good, because you're in resonant with something that nature created, and nature has these beautiful patterns that it reuses that are not only energy. They create consciousness itself, and that's what I went to study in France with Dan and his understanding of.
Oh, that's the guy from France.
That's the guy from France.
What's his last name?
Winter. He's American, but he lives over there now. Mm-hmm. I mean, just like you. Please go down that rabbit hole for anybody who just Google him, and you'll either think he's a kook or he's onto something. I think both are right.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, he talks about, basically what creates gravity and consciousness and life is the fractal nature of charge. We talked about plasma being the ultimate. And when it moves and it condenses, when it collapses into a certain pattern called the golden mean ratio, that's what creates consciousness. That is the stuff. So we're taught that the universe banged and everything is going into a state of decay, which is part of it, but it's only half the story.
Right.
What's called, and that's called entropy, right? The tendency for stuff to kind of go to a lower state of energy and decay.
Yeah.
Well, syntropy or negative entropy is the other force that, again, modern science seems to have a blind eye to, but it is what creates all those things. And so we can practice things. We can, whether it's meditation or breathing, or, Dan talks about like incorporating everything in this golden ratio, including like how long you hug, right? Like how long you hug somebody, at what point you release, like tells the person how much you love them. I mean, he's that much of a wizard.
Or
like,
how comfortable you are with hugging.
And there are frequencies that are discordance, that are not like anger, hate, jealousy. These all have frequencies too, but they just happen to be not what he calls phase conjugate, meaning like where two waves that are, even if that are of different frequencies, come together, they add and multiply, and they're better than the sum of their parts. So doesn't that sound like everything? Life, like what it means to create a child, like it's beautiful. So at an energetic level, he's basically described why the universe has life and consciousness and all that stuff, and how. So
does he talk about sound, like how sound is part of the creation of consciousness?
I think so. I mean, he talks about hundreds of different topics, but sound being an expression of the same energy, whether it's light or it's sound or it's matter or it's color. These are all just different frequencies of that same energy. Okay. So yes, absolutely, having a sound that makes us feel good is absolutely getting us in tune with that.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just flirting on the outskirts of it, but.
You
got to understand. I mean, like you could spend lifetimes trying to understand this stuff, but like Dan's mission is to make it accessible to people so that they do get it, because he's like, he's got his own stuff, but he's like, time's running out,
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah. No, I think it's very important, because clearly whatever we've been entrained with, or the programming that we've been exposed to, different cultures, and there's a lot more information out now, and it's okay. There's a little more acceptance to different information now, like what you're talking about, or psychedelics, or different beliefs or practices for spirituality than 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
20, 40, 30, So these are what seems very, very real to me is that whatever we've been entrained with in programming is not working. It's not working. So any different opportunity that we have to open our minds, to study, to explore, to have your own inner experience of what these other ways of being might be, is worth taking a look at it. Your God, this whole new information about Dan Winter, and and like understanding that you don't have to be in this prison of what you were kind of like taught and grew up with, and this is just the way it is. I'm going to work till I'm 62, retire, and just, drink a beer every day until I die. It's just, no, there's a lot more, which speaking about that, maybe we could talk about how you left your job and how that went.
Yeah, sure. I was going to say, I also think that's a good potential vector into talking about grief. And,
Yes.
I know we want to cover a lot of subjects, but so
You
yeah,
do that
so
first too. I mean, we can do whatever you want.
oh yeah, I mean, I want to be respect. So yeah, when I left my job, I was like, I needed to. Okay, here was the internal conversation in order to decide to leave. It was, I'm getting paid really well. I don't feel like I'm, putting forth the effort that I'm being rewarded for. So it felt out of integrity there. They didn't mind. That was just the nature of the job. But I said, if they doubled my salary doing what I'm doing, would I want to stay? And I was already, like I said, making a good amount. And I was like, I could not in good faith answer it yes. So I'm like, all right, well then.
So that's a good question we can ask ourselves.
Ask yourself.
And I segue into this because of the whole belief system that you just have to work forever and that this is the life you took and until
I get you.
Yeah.
I understand. Right. Right. So that was a maybe without consciously understanding it, but getting to practice faith and getting to practice whatever your faith is, with like, okay, am I going to be am I putting myself at risk here based on the system? Absolutely. Right. Oh my God, I'm quitting my job. How am I going to afford my $3,000 a month mortgage?
Right.
So it was, but once I had made the decision, I'm like, okay, well now I'll just adapt in order to see, because I know the universe has my back. Like I must have either brought that in from a previous life, or I wasn't raised with any particular religion, but I've always known, like, we're going to be taken care of, and so that's a bedrock foundation that I think we need to all believe about ourselves, because then that makes us impervious to all of the stuff they're throwing at us, and they're doing it on purpose because it works, because humans respond that way. But separate side of the conversation. So I was like, okay, well, I'll downsize my life. I sold my condo, bought a little travel trailer, like moved into a little house, and was like, cool, let's do this. And I was like, I'm not any less happy. In fact, I'm now free to do things like learn how to garden. I hadn't done that before. So I'm like, cool, let's see so I was able to, like, in a very sort of long, sort of, I guess, not pre-retirement, because I don't ever plan to retire in that way, but it was kind of like, yeah, okay, I can goof off for 2-3 years to figure out what it is, how big I want to grow the fermentation thing. Do I want to do something else? Anyway, so I feel blessed to have had that happen to me throughout life too. So, but yeah, then, when you are free from the lack, or free from the potential of like getting kicked out or being homeless, then that allows us to grow in the way that we came here to do. And so for that, I'm so grateful that happened, right? Because to your point, like, I would have just gone chase the next bigger house and the next coolest car and this and that. I'm like, this isn't doing it for me, the material. I mean, I got caught up in the materialistic stuff for a while, and then it was like, this is not fulfilling. And anyway, any spiritual meditation tradition confirms that for us, right? But everything is impermanent.
It's a very shiny trap, like, if you have this and then you have this and then you have this, I was at one point like, we have this house, all these cars, the kids are in these private schools, and I'm like running myself to the ground. I have this thyroid thing because of the stress. This is bullshit, and so it wasn't, for me, it wasn't like from one day to the next, but I was like, okay, it took a little while until I just decided to also quit my job, where I made a lot of money and where I had like, oh, there's benefits and blah, blah, blah. People would tell me, you can't do that. I'm like, yes, I can. But the insurance, I'm like, I'm going to get sick and die. And if I stay there for that, that's what that insurance is for. Like, no, you figured it out. And that's why I love talking about this here and having, guests on, friends on that say that, because it is a possibility, and yes, do I have a brand new car now? No, I don't care. I have a used car. It gets me everywhere I go.
Right. Exactly.
There's a little less silly shopping that I maybe didn't really need to do. I see now the shopping as, it's really like a serotonin hit, right? So I'm like, oh, why do I want to buy something? Wait. You're choosing a different lifestyle, upcycle, you just start making different choices, but it's a way more relaxed life for us. Way more relaxed. Sometimes maybe too relaxed.
I know. No, that's so funny, right? Because, but I think that is maybe because I kind of think maybe I've overindulged a little bit in that regard. Like, my life right now is it's pretty chill, right?
Which is how it's supposed to be.
Which I think it is how it's supposed to be. But yet at some point we go through cycles where it's like, okay, now it's time to work hard again. Not that I wasn't working hard, but I totally
ramp it up a little, bring it back. Yeah. Do you think that's because of the hustle message culture, that there is like, when is it enough to not have to be hustling anymore? Right? Like, I can enjoy the life, I can be grateful, but then something in my mind starts coming up and like, no, but you got to work a little harder because just in case, and and you shouldn't be. And then I have to tell myself, no, today's a beach day.
Yeah.
This is my life that I created, and I'm going to sit at the beach and I'm going to regulate my body and rest and pray and be grateful and not be on the phone, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that taking that responsibility for yourself is very liberating, and it comes with challenges, right? So like, you're not told what to do all the time. So it's up to you but you're more apt to listen to that inner voice. So I'm so glad we've had that similar journey of like, but yeah, like right now, like I'll get up and I go out and let my chickens out of the backyard and like get to, smell the flowers and like come back in, make my coffee. I mean, it's just like,
it's great.
And, I'm surrounded by a garden. Like I built a food forest over the last, 7 or 8 years. I got bananas, I got figs, I got avocados, I've got all the things we're fortunate to grow here. But so it's like, okay, cool. This is great. And okay, what's the next thing that I need to challenge that comes from a place of how can I serve, right? Because I think that is an important question we all need to understand. And when we're constantly being distracted by the system, we'll call it, we don't get to ponder that and really wonder, okay, am I really making doing the highest and best for why I came here, why my soul came here? So, I think that's part of the point. We could get into rabbit holes around that, but
no,
regardless,
I love that rabbit hole.
It is the personal challenge. Like that is the personal challenge. It's like, are you here to claim your dharma and figure out what it is, how you can best serve I used to say humanity, but now it's like, okay, maybe it's not just humans anymore. Maybe it's not just Earth. Maybe Earth is conscious. I know she is. So like, how can I serve my local ecosystem, whether that means the solar system or the galaxy or my neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's important, finding that purpose.
Yeah. And enjoying it, not doing it out of some guilt thing, but it really, I think it's a win-win, right? You're serving others and you're like, wow, that was so fun because it's helping me as well. Like when I'm teaching these mindfulness classes or when I'm doing, teaching about trauma and it's like, to me, this is kind of one of my dharmas. This is what I came to do, sing songs and teach about, understanding your body, your gut, your nervous system, your mind, the capacity that you have to focus, where attention goes, energy flows. Don't be messing around, mismanage energy. Like to understand these things to me is important because I didn't understand that growing up. It was like, yes, you were getting told what to do. I was a rebel. I tried my own ways and had many, many teachers. And now I'm like, okay, that was all really helpful. Let's pass it along in a simple way, which is why I love the book and the way you explain things, because it's tangible. It makes sense, right? You're not like it's some lecture where you're like, what the hell?
Yeah, thank you. I've gotten that feedback. And in fact, I think one of my huge next projects, if I can declare it publicly or keep me accountable, I do want to write maybe a series of books about Dan Winter's work, because being a physicist and electrical engineer, he understands it. And it's taken me 3 to 5 years just to start to crack what he's talking about,
right? Because
I don't have a background. So the point is, I feel like it's important work.
Yeah.
How can I contribute to it? I mean, he's doing an amazing job of getting out there. I think he's like in his 70s and he's on YouTube like 3 times a week. So he gets it. Like he's awesome. And he could use help because this stuff is important to learn. But yeah, no, I can't. Maybe we can pivot towards the grief stuff, because I think as part of this awakening or remembering, I guess we'll call it, of who we really are, it registered to me as like deep betrayals. Like the fact that the entire system itself is set up to keep you from getting to this to our point.
Realization.
It felt like, wow, there's some dark forces, or maybe they're not dark. Maybe they've got their own agenda. If you believe we're a farm, then we're just farm animals and we don't have whatever. As we're not as important as those that did X. But again, point being, it's a betrayal, and I think it requires grief, to get over it, because if we don't do that, then we're going to cling to something because it feels good, even though somebody else told it to us, rather than we experienced it ourselves, right? So to me, grief is letting go of the potential for anything to be true. I mean, maybe nothing here is true. Maybe, again, you name it, right? Yeah. Except what we can tangibly do in our bodies, how we interact with nature. That was my realization back in 2020. I'm like, the only thing I can believe, and this was before AI, right? It's even worse now, right? With AI, our senses will betray us, right? I mean, it's just the technology is so good, but if misused. But I was like, wow, dirt, worms, birds, everything still works. The plants still work. So let me just go focus in on that. And that's what kind of helped get me through that nonsense. But at the same time, it required grieving of we've been told a lot of things that are probably not true. So anyway.
It's a big grief. And I think it comes in phases. Like one of the biggest, I mean, there's so many phases of grief, right? Like, first of all, that, you thought you had this great family and they actually are the trauma nest, and there's all these things, and you grieve it, you process it, and then you understand. Then comes the religious part, right? Like, Mexicans are grown, very much Catholic. This is the belief system. You're like, that's bullshit, but then you're kind of like, well, is it really? So there's a huge grief in, not necessarily because, I wish that was true, right? It's like, I'm glad that wasn't true. That was oppressive and horrible. But also, it's a pathological process of really releasing something that has been oppressing you for so long. And it's like, oh my fucking God, I waited years in this guilt, in this oppression, in this making myself small because, cultural or religious, or so that grief, besides your own inner childhood trauma grief, whatever, that grief is so potent. And I really think that that's part of the grief that has a lot of people depressed, besides the gut and the system and all that. But it's this sadness that we don't understand that we can transmute, alchemize, right? Throw it in the fire, move it around. And then the grief after that of the realization of your existence and that it's going to end in this particular way. What you said right now about the earth, brother, I tell you, the only thing that keeps me sane is knowing that the real mother is the earth, that she's conscious, and then I can go stand barefoot in front of her. And yes, the birds are singing to me, which means there's safety around because the birds are singing. And I don't think about it, but you just feel it, and the water, and then sitting in the temazcal full of mud and just drumming and pouring hot tea that we made from fresh herbs and laughing and crying together. That is, that's it for me, and I can see all this AI stuff, and I love Mystery School. I'm going to go to Alexander Tanu's school again in June. I love hearing about Dan Winter, and all these things are fascinating. But bottom line is, I'll sit on the earth under a tree, and this is what's real for me right now. And so attending to the grief is, I don't know if it's part of the design for us to evolve and grow, but if we don't tend to it, it gets stuck in the body, and it just, like you said, entropy
right
comes faster.
You're right. I mean, and I think, maybe this gets into more of the cosmology, right? Which is sort of like, I define, or not my definition, but the cosmology as the queen of all the sciences, right? So your cosmological framework is how you envision everything in the universe, including is there a God? What was there a Big Bang? Are we all made of just matter smashed together, or are we consciousness? These sorts of things, right? And I think to that end, grief it's part of what being a conscious being is, right? In order to experience the contention is what, one of the another guy I love listening to, Cliff High, he talks about contention. I mean, he's also an aliens guy, which great. Maybe there's aliens. I don't know.
Oh, I'm
But he
pretty sure
talks
there's
about
aliens.
right.
Of course
Okay,
there's
we don't
aliens.
want to get into that.
I've seen some aliens.
Okay,
Anyway.
we need to talk about that next. But
Yeah.
contention, meaning like this is if you believe the universe is here to become more self-aware, which is what consciousness, one definition is self-awareness, then it needs to experience novelty and new things in order to grow. And so that is why two people come together. That is why civilizations come together and clash. It's like it's all in service to learning, and that includes happiness, joy, sadness, grief, all of the experiences, right? Yeah. So rather than think, oh, you're being punished for this and that, it's like, I think that's just I don't think it's true.
No, I don't think it's true either. I mean, and I mean, clearly we're all creating our own reality, right? Regardless, but
Yep.
but it's, for example, we went on this retreat and we showed up, and I bring the flowers, and we have the copalera, and we light it up, and we're setting up. We're all giddy that we're gonna spend the night out in nature and eat some mushrooms and hang out, and then we had a great dinner. But for some of the gals there, it was a little bit of a struggle, which can be with mushrooms sometimes, a little bit of the messing while your body, it's a very somatic physical thing. Like your body's, the energy of the psilocybin is moving through you and you're working some shit out and it's emotional. And then after a while, maybe an hour or two into it, you're just like, oh, it was amazing. And you forget that you were kind of struggling a couple hours ago. But one of the girls was talking about how it's because, and out of the 12, I don't know how many girls were there, maybe 4 or 5 were struggling here and there, not the whole time. But one of them mentioned something like, it's because we didn't pray an offering to the land and ask the ancestors, and that's why. And I didn't say anything, but I was just like, well, then everybody would have had a hard time, and not everybody had a hard time if that was the case. And that's the cosmovision, that's their cosmology, like you said, which I think is a little bit patriarchal coming in from, oh, if you don't do this, you don't do that. Because the other thing I think is, if the earth is the mother, right? It's this consciousness. I like to call her the mother. And she's represented in many ways, no? Tonatzin, Guadalupe, whatever. She's just a mother. The sand and the ocean. And I'm the mother, and my kid comes up to me, and he's 2 years old, and he comes up on my lap, and he's so excited to see me. I'm not going to tell him, get off me and pray first. He's already there. That is his prayer. That is his life prayer. So I don't know why I went on that rant. But anyway, I think it's because of our beliefs. And the more open or the more self-aware and consciousness, then you're not so trapped by these beliefs.
Right.
Right. Which can be cool if that's what you want to believe. Okay, fine. But the more open you are to life, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I feel very constricted right now and then. I'll be driving like, oh my God, there's too many people in the car. I can't drive. I'm like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You've been driving but I think I should get off and do something. I'm like, no, bitch, you got to get to work, But I can get to those places,
right.
But I also understand that there's these places of expansion where I'm like, I've been eating well. My gut is great. I bring it back to the gut because it always affects, my heart is open. I've been doing the grief work and the understanding of traumas. And then I could be in these states of, like you say, just open. I don't know anything. I just like to talk about it.
What you're describing again, is when we're in a city, like we're in a very, very dense city, we have an aura, and our aura contracts and expands based on the level of safety, right? So if you're in a crowded building or whatever, you need to pull in your aura in order to protect yourself. Whereas the opposite extreme would be the ceremonies that you guys lead. You're out in nature, you're touching the earth, you're in a loving environment with each other, so your auras can expand, and that feels good. I mean, not just, and then again, it's electromagnetic. It's not. Yeah. It's woo and it's real physics.
Yeah, it's real physics.
So yeah, I mean, when we get into that point where maybe it's an old pattern, an old belief, an old memory that's triggering, potential pain or whatever, versus, the ability to be like, and relax our auras. And
I think we call it woo just because of religious traditions. And then the system's telling you, oh, that's woo woo. You're like a dork. You're like a weirdo. And that already no, it's not woo. Actually, look, it's science.
It's science. Yeah.
And we have an intuitive knowing. Right? Like even 10, 20, 30 years ago, oh my God, that guy's such a good vibe. you know?
Yep.
I totally vibe with them because you're resonant. You know, the vibe of the frequency, you connect. You can walk into the room and be like, oh my God, it's so weird in here. So like there's these things that we need to understand that we already know because of our
Yes.
design that we oppress because of the system. So yeah.
Great point. Great point. Yeah. So when we have an intuitive feel, and this maybe we can tie this back to the gut, intuition is our connection to other people's and the environment's energy field, right? So, right, if we've got a bad feeling about something, that's not just a feeling. There's an energetic, whatever, rejection or bristling, or maybe a dissonance, the opposite of resonance, where like you would be wise to honor that, and
Yeah.
I can't even think of a time where when I honored my intuition, it was like dead wrong. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And so by eating properly and by detoxifying our environment, including eating fermented foods, that helps set us up back to our default state, which is intuitive, it's feeling, it's being in touch with our environment, and it's it's not only going to keep us out of danger, but keep us attracted towards the things that we love to do and that those who love us. And so a lot of stuff starts in our gut,
So we should be eating fermented foods every day.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you consider purple onions with just salt and lemon ferment?
Typically not. So the fermentation process, so you're talking about would be like a light pickle or a quick pickle.
Oh, okay.
So, however, you do need time for those microbes to proliferate. At least I'd say for any vegetable, 4 to 5 days minimum.
Okay.
In order for the bacterial succession to happen, where it starts to create its own acids, and then becomes what you would consider to be fermented. And at that point, then eating the colony that you just basically created, some of them go into your gut, some stick around, some take up residence, and others pass through. But we know there is a positive effect, and that's when we say probiotic. Well, probiotic's been distilled into a pill, but I like to say fermented foods are the original probiotics. So these good symbiotic gut bacteria are things that grow in the jar, we put into our bodies, they take up residence, everybody's happy, and the ecosystem in our gut is like happy.
I'm wondering if escabeche, do you know what that is?
I do.
Is that a ferment?
One of my favorite recipes to make.
Okay, so it is a ferment.
So the thing is, it can be. If you quick pickle something, if you just dump vinegar, which is distilled, vinegar is a fermented food, but unless you're using like raw vinegar, distilled vinegar that's white doesn't have microbes in it. So you're preserving the food, but you're not necessarily fermenting it. However, escabeche, one of the easier recipes.
Is that in there?
It's in there, yeah. All you need to do is put those vegetables in, put some salt water on top of it, and then submerge it. You'll get the same results.
In the fridge?
No, at room temperature. So remember, these microbes like working at room temperature pretty much. Okay. The fridge, it will develop, but you won't get the probiotic benefits as much.
I'm going to make escabeche tonight.
And make a big gas batch, and then I've let it because you're using cauliflower and carrots and onions and jalapenos. If you keep them large chunks, you can let it ferment actively for 2 or 3 months just on your shelf, and then just eat it as you want to eat it. And then you don't have to wait for it to be done, so to speak.
You don't have to wait 2 to 3 months before you can eat it?
No.
Oh, okay.
But if in a situation where like, oh, my fridge is full, I can just let my ferment keep going. And it will still develop. Again, certain things I would say you do want to get them in the fridge at some point, but escabeche happens to be one that's like very stable, even continuously fermenting. So
I love escabeche.
Oh my God, you got to make it. Well,
I'll
bookmark it for you.
Yeah. I'm like, I get so excited about the food. Because even one of the things that Armando was asking me today about, like, how do you take care of yourself? Like, how do you, with all this work you do? I'm like, honestly, I love being in the kitchen. I just cleaning up. Okay, we're going to cook this. Now we're going to do that. And, it's like a very meditative, just like a love.
It's a simple act of self-love, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and for the people you're cooking for,
and for who you're cooking for, if you're getting, like, I'm walking out to my garden, I'm picking things, and I'm like, trying, like the life force is still literally there. You can eat. So there's a whole. So I'm like delving into those principles of like trying to process the food as least amount as possible. Now, fermentation is a processing technique, but I'm talking about maybe like other things where that life force, and one of Dan's famous quotes, the life force, the charge is the food. So like when we eat an apple, when you first bite into a whole apple, it's subtle, but there's a charge there. It's all the capacitance. It's electrical term of that was stored in that fruit, you
apple.
transfers to your body. Whereas if you cut it with a metal knife into little pieces, the life force somewhat escapes. So I've been like, how can I take that to the nth degree? So I'm trying to like pick vegetables in my garden, not use a knife, maybe rip them if I need to. Certain things I'm like, how am I going to slice a carrot if I don't? So I'm still doing it. But there's things you can do the way that you cook. Apparently, if you're using what's considered a long wave, like here's the longest wave would be solar. Like if you had a solar cooker, where the next would be like a wood fire, right? It's a slow. If you look at the wavelength of the heat that comes off it, it's slow. Whereas then you get into like gas, it's a little better. But then when you get into like electric, that's a totally different frequency, right? It's not applying, or again, it's potentially disrupting the life force of the food. Now cooking does that anyway, but there are things you can do to kind of like
make it more amable, like kinder, slower, more like you're supposed to.
Right.
Okay.
And so, I mean, it really does require, I'm like, how am I going to dice up garlic, and like, haven't figured those things out. One thing you can do is use apparently ceramic blades, like knives, they don't disrupt the charge as much as metal knives. But metal knives are so ubiquitous.
That's so funny. One of the ladies that worked at my mom's house years ago in Mexico, I was a kid. I got one of the knives and I was just stirring like the chocolate or something with a knife or something. She's like, don't do that. Do not put a metal knife in there. You have to use a wooden spoon. My mom always had wooden spoons.
Yep.
And I was like, what? I mean, she made something up like, it's bad luck or you're cutting up the spirits of it or something like that. But it's like, okay, that was just her cosmovision, but she was right. You're messing up with the energy.
Because all indigenous cultures. Okay. Knew this, whether they knew it from the physics perspective, from a previous civilization, we can talk about that, but
yes.
It doesn't matter. She knew, like, wood is very conductive. I mean, it's good in that way. So like I've been trying to replace earthenware is okay, like clay. So I've been like, how can I figure out how to cook in clay? So clay, anything like aluminum is like the absolute worst. Like you should have no aluminum really in your house, but definitely not in your kitchen. And it took me a while.
Aluminum foil either?
I mean, if it's not touching the food, and I will use it sometimes to cover a dish, possibly, but there are enough alternatives now. Like I've been doing the beeswax. Have you seen the linen with the beeswax? As far as a cover now,
right.
You probably shouldn't cook with it at all. I mean,
I don't do it much, but I do see like we used to. If you're going to make like roasted chili peppers with whatever.
It's hard. I mean, it's difficult. It is. It's difficult to find substitutes.
But I've been known for a while, like we should not be using. I haven't bought it in years.
Good.
In the earthenware, well, that's why I'll make the bread in the earthenware things. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think, it's like, for me, it's like this excitement to go back into like wooden spoons and earthenware and I do a lot of integration work on, okay, I'll check it out. Let's do integration. What's integration? It's your lifestyle. Yes, there's a process of this happened and making sense of it as a therapeutic thing. But best integration is how you're living. Like, like going outside, like you said, and your vegetables, and this is still charged with life force energy. And I'm not going to cut up the apple. I'm going to eat it and sit by the fire almost every night with your friends or the neighbors. And it's doable, and it's not really that unreachable. Some people might be like, well, easy for you. I have to work 10 hours. Yeah, but at hour 11, you can sit by the fire barefoot.
Right. And, we again, I see the juxtaposition because I got this desire to like go get my land, some land and go grow food and maybe a livestock or whatever. But I'm like, we live in a very urban dense environment and we're both doing it in our own capacity. Like, so you can do it wherever you are. So like on not more than 1,000 square feet of dirt, I'm growing, might be 15 to 20% of my calories between my chicken eggs, my avocados. We grow some sweet potatoes. I'm still working on getting the system, bananas and fruits and all. I
saw the bananas. That's great. My neighbor has a banana palm tree.
Yeah.
I have a neighbor that has this whole, I'll show you when we're done. We can go to the rooftop. Yeah. You can sneak in, but
we're so lucky we get to grow bananas here. I mean, because they don't stand up well to a freeze, but anyway, and they're weeds that you can get to eat and that provide
It's a
shade.
weed? A banana?
Well, it's not I say they grow like weeds. But, and I've been talking to our friend AB, like, you got to take some banana pups and put them, grow up. We want to put them at Maya Moon, actually. So
anyway.
Yeah.
I'll take one.
Okay, I'll give you the pups are growing.
Okay, so I have two more mystical questions. One was earlier you said who we really think we are. Who do you really think we are?
Who do I think we are? Did I ask that?
You mentioned it.
I mean, I think we are extensions. We are individuations of the cosmic consciousness, and whose purpose appears to be self-knowledge, and so we condense down from into this auric field, which also intersects with the three-dimensional matrix. That is what matter is, because matter, what does Dan say? Matter is just energy with a weight problem. So basically, it's just energy that's in a rotational form coalesces down into what we call matter. But any quantum physicist will tell you, even the mainstream ones, that most of matter is space, like the space between the things we call matter. So we are energetic beings, and it seems like a cool adventure to get to participate in it. And I do think there are forces again that are here to help us grow, whether we call those negative forces, dark forces, evil forces, but we still have free agency and free will. So, it's an honor to be able to get to do that. And yes, there's challenges, and yes, there's pain.
Yeah.
Pain doesn't have to be suffering. It usually is. That's our individual journeys, I think, is we were born into a world where there appears to be suffering, and there is. I'm not sugarcoating it. And it's also a beautiful place,
Yeah. Right.
Did I answer the question or skirt it successfully?
No, that's great. Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's
what
simple.
Do you think? How would you answer
simple.
that question?
I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I like what you said. I'm like, yeah. But then I also really get up in my head a lot and try to complicate things more. I'm like, it can't be that simple. What's going to happen? I think a lot about death and dying. And then again, I have my times where I'm just like, that's it. You're just going off to the new adventure. But I think we're puro amor, which is I always say, like, puro amor, the logo, the stickers. Remind me to give you a puro amor sticker. Because in the end, it's like, it's just love. We're here to love. And one of my main homeworks every day is like, what's getting in the way of me being able to connect to this love, to receive this love? And, I'm pissed off at this person, or they didn't clean up the kitchen. And then I'm like, ooh, that's getting in the way. I can still say, can you help me? I can still clean up the kitchen. I can still, but in an open heart way. So I don't know. I think maybe that's kind of a little bit of what you're saying. Like, we're here to learn. I think we're here to learn how to love openly, freely, without protections, and also how to receive. And, it's hard to receive, to be open to that. But after that, I'm just like, I don't know anything. It's all a big mystery. That's why I love talking to people like you and Katie and Julio, because it's like, okay, let's just wonder.
It is, and I wonder if you've. So one of the things I'm sorry, I'm so enamored by Dan's work, and he's so prolific. I keep referring back to him.
I'm about to go YouTube the shit out of that guy.
But he talks about what the Aboriginals in Australia call the ancestral song lines. Mm-hmm. So in his song lines,
like a song,
line, okay. Yeah. But other cultures just call it like the ancestral memory, right? And so he's got such a beautiful cosmology around it, which is like, when our function as sentient, self-aware beings is to create bliss and memories, and what he calls being a shareable wave, meaning a wave that collapses constructively. And then when we die, we return. If we die successfully, we return back to the ancestral. We've added to the ancestral song line or the ancestral memory. So to me, it's not just about being live for the day, woohoo, selfish. In a way it is, but that's in service to adding to the DNA, because DNA is the real deal. DNA is the radio. It is the mechanism in 3D in which we carry these memories. So when we die, up through the Sushumna, that the thread of ether goes back. And again, if we're doing it successfully, if we've lived in a harmonious environment, if we're not angry at the time of death, because anger is not conjugate with that. It's a erratic frequency. Only if we are in that joy do we get to add back. So I'm like, that's a responsibility, actually. And it's, think of all of our ancestors and how they did that. Some maybe were more successful than others, but like, so we're here to add our uniqueness to the collective, unconscious, ancestral memory, song line, whatever you want to call it, fourth dimension. We want to get into that. And I'm like, that's really beautiful. Like, so live well, because it helps you. It helps serve the people that you live with, and hopefully they'll remember it. Somebody will remember it in eons from now.
Ancestral memory.
Ancestral memory. Like we're building it. We're adding the next link on the chain. And so I guess that helps me understand like death as just a transition between those two states of the material state back to the etheric state, back to probably come back. That part's the great mystery, right? So,
I'm reading a book right now by Pima Chedron called How You Live is How You Die. And she talks a lot about that. Oh, coincidence?
Sounds like, exactly.
It's just about exactly when you leave, and she calls it the Bordeaux.
Oh, yep. That's exactly.
That's why. And she emphasizes on meditation and mindfulness practices so that you can
be in those states. Yeah, exactly.
And not be freaking out.
Yeah, exactly. That's the, and they all the, from Egypt to any of the Pacific Islanders traditions, they all have a version of that, And again, we could argue that modern cultures, use that term loosely, they're not honoring that for some reason. We don't know what it is, but I think that's our obligation as humans to keep the lineage going, really, is what it's about. Keeping the civilization, keeping the species lineage, you know, whether we're from Mexico or China or Italy or the US, it's all we all go back to the same source.
And a lot of people are turning back now to indigenous wisdom because, like you said, for some reason, the modern people aren't doing it. Don't you think it's like the plan? To distract you. It's a very I'm getting all ready for this mindfulness magic container that I'm going to open up here in a couple of weeks. And so I'm back to all my old teachers and seeing Dan Siegel. Do you know who he is? Mm-hmm. Dan Siegel he's great. He's like a neuroscientist, meditation guy. He has the Mindsight Institute. Brilliant guy. Very sweet dude. And one of the things I just heard him teach, it was like a recent class. It wasn't like, I just took it last week. He says that he's very much into the fact that we're intra-connected. No, he made up a word called, instead of me and we, it's like buwi or something like that. Which is what indigenous have been saying, in Lakesh, I am you, you are me. But he was talking about how we're so focused on the self, right? He's like, myself, and I have to take care of myself and this self. Okay, but what does that self really mean? Because if I'm just so focused on myself, I lose touch that I can't be without you or with Julio or without, with others. Like we're part of this whole web. So he describes it as, why don't we change it into inner self? Like instead of like, I'm going to have self-compassion, inner self-compassion, right? Inner self-love. Because otherwise, that's kind of what's happening in the culture, that we're so selfish and it's only me and I'm going to take care of me and my boundaries and me first. Yeah, of course you have to take care of yourself, and I get it. You don't have, but with the awareness that it shouldn't end there. Maybe that's where you have to start because you've been oppressed for so long and haven't been able to be your authentic person. But now understanding that we're not just these individual people. We need each other. We need community. We're interconnected, and that's been taken away from us because of the system.
It's been the challenge of our species, and as you're saying this, I'm like, did you put something in this tea here? But no, I'm definitely getting like some serious.
I took a microdose. Maybe you're feeling my energy.
I am. The fractalness. So when you were describing what the Dan Siegel was saying, I visualized the muscle fascia is. It's like that membrane that moves all around our body, and it's structured water, and it's fluid, but it's also requires connection, right? So, and then I'm thinking like, the struggle that we're going through, right? If any system is discordant, right? Whether it's our heart or whether, if our heart is out of sync with our liver or whatever, it creates illness, right? Or discordance. Well, maybe that's also going on at the human species layer, right? Like we're being challenged as a species of like, okay, we're gonna keep throwing shit at you to like throw you off your game, to disconnect you, to divide you. This is where the grieving process to me is going on. It's like everything we grew up in is most likely a psyop or a lie, and it's like, wow, is there anything? And so it's one of my practices. Like when I hear an old song that I, was part of my memory, I'm like, I suss it out. I intuitively listen. I'm like, was this from a place of love, or can I detect? Because I think when you practice that, you can detect it. Like you can detect when there's a thread of control being implemented, because it's still whatever forces are figured out that we're emotional beings and are using that to exploit us.
Right.
Again. So as a collective, as a species, that's the challenge, is like, can we overcome that? And it's not about killing and defeating and this and that, but it's about, as a collective, like saying, oh, okay, well, this is our true nature. And then once that happens, all those challenges go away because you've learned your lesson. You've learned the lesson, right? So it's whether it's an organ in your body, or whether it's a community, or whether it's an entire planet of people, which is what, arguably what we are. And like, we're being challenged. So like, come back to ourselves, but also know that who we really are, remember who we are.
And train. I think we have to train. If you're not constantly training, we're like these little whirlwinds that just they suck you right back in. I'm like, so
what kind of training do you kind of do? I mean, along those lines,
So my training is, I wake up and watch the sunrise. That's part of the training. Like, I don't care how tired I am. I get up there. If it's cloudy, I'm like, ooh, I get to go back to sleep,
Right.
But it's hardly ever cloudy in San Diego. And I meditate. I meditate with sound, or I just meditate on my own. I practice mindfulness, it's like, and anything with my physical body. So I do yoga, like one day yoga, one day weights, one day yoga, just to keep the body, whatever is embodiment. But my main training, I think, is sound and singing. So anything that gets me connected to the body. And if I don't meditate or go to yoga, or I'm not singing and I'm just out in concrete land, it takes very, very, very few days for me to be losing my mind. And already being like this constricted, So that's like, I think I started meditating literally when I was like 19 years old, on and off here and there. And then I got sober at 25 years old. And at the program, they were like, you have to pray or meditate. I'm like, I'm not praying. I was all pissed off about this bullshit, but I'll meditate. And my friend Sergio took me to this mindfulness classes, or the Buddhist, I don't know, but I just got into it. And I've been pretty consistent for all those years, here and there, on and off. But I think for me, that's the training, which is why I like to teach it, because I've been a little bit off this whole winter. I'm like, all right, it's time to teach, because every teacher's teaching what they need to learn.
Absolutely.
And, it's not like
we're all mirrors of one another, helping each other, right?
So, but that structure for me, that gives me structure. It gives me grounding, and it gives me lightheartedness. It keeps me open, But so that's my training. Is the mainful thing is mindfulness. It's been amazing, and most of the time I got Tara Brach or Jack Kornfield on the podcast. Those are the main teachers that I've been listening to for the past 10 years, maybe. I listen to tons of stuff, but the basics, mindfulness. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, you're reminding me of the journey of meditation, and sort of like my ego's challenging the meditation. But every time I would come to study a different tradition or practice, before I had a meditation practice, I would inevitably reach the conclusion that the only way to get there is through meditation. And my ego was like, I'm going to find a way. And it would go run around and do something else. And nope, meditation. So I did like one of those 10-day Vipassana meditations.
Okay.
And that cracked me in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, it was because you literally had no distractions and nowhere to go. And so that was the space and you're doing it with a lot of other people. So, but you're silent, right? You're not, have you done
I did a 7-day one.
Nice.
And I was about to kill myself the first 2 days. By day 3.5, I was like, okay, I don't think I ever want to go back. And then there were some other struggles. We actually did get to talk a little bit at night to the teacher. So it wasn't 100%.
Correct.
You could ask questions, and But then the next day again, silence, silence, silence
Yeah.
eating, silence, this, silence that. So yeah, it was mind blowing for me. I was like, oh,
It was
everybody should do this.
everybody should do it. Yeah, I mean, and it was. I had my highs and my lows, and sitting the fourth day or so, sitting there, and I'd already had a decent posture from practicing yoga, but sitting there like the pain. There was a pain that hit my leg on day 5, and I was like, oh my god, I'm not going to be able to get through this. And like, sure enough, I got through it.
Yeah.
And so it challenges. It literally challenges everything, and and then this particular, I was in the Goenka tradition, so it was like aversions and cravings are what Buddhism in general seeks to let go of those things. And so one of my aversions was dishes. Like I hated doing dishes, right? I'm just like, but by the end of the last day, you're asked to do some amount of service, and by that 10th day, I'm like, can you please send me to the greasiest pots and pans of the dirtiest part of the kitchen, please? And then I was just like, I mean, I got it. At that moment, I'm like, be present. That was the lesson. Is like, you have to, this thing has to get done because we're meat people. Do it. Just, and like, and
We're
that
meat
lesson,
people.
like we're right now we're meat people, we'll be energetic again, but like for now, do this, so, and ever since then, like, again, small things like that, but it reminds you, like, be present with what you're doing, even if you don't like it. That's just your old patterns, your old traps, like taking you out of the moment,
And it shows the capacity that we have to train again, to focus on this and this and this. And yeah, that's beautiful.
I mean, and I mean, I'll openly admit I don't have a strong daily practice, but I'm trying to get back into it. Like you, I was doing the sun gazing in the morning when I can. They tell you not to look at the sun. That's not true. Like early in the morning, you can look at the what do they say? The gazers up to 45 minutes a day, both in the evening and in the morning. It's safer to look at it. But I tell you, I felt like there were some profound communications with the sun, because again, if we look at we're just a family. Earth is a member of her family, which is the sun is probably the power center. It gets its power from somewhere else, but we can also directly connect with other conscious beings like the sun. And like, I'm sure what I was staring at, I'm like, oh, like I'm checking my brain out, but it's just like, it's sending gobs of information. Does my little, monkey brain figure it out yet? Not yet, but I'm going to keep listening, like, so.
To me, it seems like it's more of a sentient, like a sensation thing. Like I'll be up there going like, okay, son, give me all your information. Cause I'm like, give it all, give it to me. Thank you. Oh my God, the birds. I get so like euphoric, very calm, very euphoric. And then, one day it'll be cloudy, or I don't know, I spend the night somewhere else and I couldn't see the sun. And so what I do notice is maybe I don't get like a specific list of this is the information of the spaceship coming through and this is what you need to know. But my body acts in a different way. It's more open. It's more grounded. It's more grateful. Has energy. I'm more like, I catch this. I listen to that. I'm more present. So, even if I'm not making sense of it consciously, like it gave me this code and this code and this code. There's other people that might get those codes.
Information can be anything. I mean, not just what our brains can. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, you're still getting the downloads, as they say. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just up there like, I don't know what this is, but thank you. Thank you one more day, thank you.
And, again, not to jump back into the negative part of it, but it's like, how many things are there for us to not access that, right? Wear sunglasses, wear sunscreen that's got toxins in it. Don't be out in the sun; it'll give you cancer. Like wear synthetic clothing. Sorry, didn't mean to take it negative, but like true. That is the challenge. That is in the present, and I think it's being accelerated in order to get us as a species to also step up, right? So I'm not saying it from a victimized point of view. I'm saying like information. This is the go time. Like this is
information.
So you and I and the rest of the folks, as we get this awareness, it's our obligation really to like help
to share it.
Help share it.
It is. When it was New Year's, I was with my daughter, and they're like, Happy New Year's. And I'm like, actually, it's not the New Year. It's the Gregorian year. And so it's very difficult right now for you to be thinking that this is a New Year because it's dark and you're going to beat yourself up. And my daughter, they're like, oh. I'm like, yeah, we're going to wait till the spring, till around March. Other cultures more or less around the same time because they were more like, my daughter's like, Mom, stop it. Like, nobody gives a shit about this. And I'm like, actually, they do.
They do.
And
that's the difference.
how are you not going to at least, if they don't give a shit, that's their problem. But I wish somebody would have told me that, when I was way young, as you kind of intuitively know. Again, it's in there. It's in the design.
It's a remembering.
It's a remembering.
Yeah, right.
But yes, we do have to talk about this.
We didn't do a Happy New Year cheers.
Happy New Year, but
it's we're recording this on the...
Here, we're going to do it.
Okay.
So this is I don't know what you think of this. I like to know what you think of this.
Oh.
It's a prebiotic probiotic blend.
Are you sure you want my opinion?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Let's take a look here.
100%.
So it's not kombucha. It's not a naturally fermented drink, but it's so
like
prebiotics
juice.
Again are fibers that feed the gut bacteria. That's what a prebiotic. So let's where does it say? Prebiotic fiber blend, Jerusalem artichoke, chicory root. And then they do add live probiotics, so Bacillus, subtilis, but it's not a traditionally brewed beverage like if you had a kombucha SCOBY.
Okay.
And therefore, you can literally name the one bacterial strain. Kombucha that you would make in your house would have like 50 bacterial strains.
Okay, so I have to make kombucha.
You got to
One more
make
thing
kombucha, yeah.
But thank you for your...
But it's probably that guy the Debbie Downer that ruins it.
No, it's fine. This is when you can't make kombucha and you're on the road.
Is that way better than Coca-Cola? Hell yeah.
No.
So
I'm usually making Jamaica, but I don't want to go all the way up there. So maybe Wild Wonder can sponsor it. No.
So I totally now that I ruined the moment, let's
you didn't.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. March 20th, 21st, spring equinox. Actually now.
We're here. We made it.
We made it. So I know we've been going on for a while, but just before we go, I just want to ask you to tell us, because I know you know so much about astrology and stuff, like, what's up? So Mercury retrograde is over. Or what's happening in the stars right now
So I'm a dilettante, meaning I'm a dabbler in astrology. I don't, not a tarot reader, not anything like that. And I had a profound conversation. It was just a text with a new friend, another amazing guy that does this men's group program. But when I was telling him about the astrology and Mercury retrograde, he kind of was like, well, every astrologer, at least in the West, they all use the same computer program, so in other words, it tells them the same information about whatever, the conjunctions and the positions of the planets and stuff. He's like, and as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, it's probably somebody's behind the scenes programming it, potentially, right? Now that said, there have always been, even going back to real ancient understandings, I do believe the positions of the planets relative to where we are influence us because everything is connected, right? So Mars, Jupiter, Mercury, we're all swimming in this sea of ether. So I do think there is true times when it's, for example, Mercury retrograde, don't get into any big financial things, like there's other times where retrograde is like, don't get a haircut during these, it's going to mess up. So it's more like, I don't take it as seriously. Ever since that my friend told me that, I was like, oh shoot, he's right. Like it could be manipulated too, right? So again, come back to what we feel. But that said, the retrograde would be like, from Earth's perspective, it looks like the planet's going backwards because we're moving faster than it. So that's what it means from an astronomical perspective.
So it's pulling energy.
And it does. And I do garden by the moon, because the moon does have an effect on the tides. And so certain times of the month, you don't want to sow seeds because of the gravitational effect could make it harder for the plant to thrive. So there is truth to it. And it's all I was getting caught up in, just like you would consume a binge watch something. I would be like, "Where's my astrology report? Tell me how to feel today." And I was like, "Oh no, that's backwards, right?" I'm just back into the same thing with somebody who's maybe a little bit more enlightened about.
No, I don't know if it's enlightened. More maybe
because
I kind of like what you said about it's the Earth thing, right? Like with the moon, that the moon is pulling certain gravitational forces, so don't put the seed that day because it's gonna affect it or not be more conducive for it to grow faster, et cetera, et cetera. Or to understand, like I now have been living in this house for 13 years, I think 13, 14 years. So I know that in certain months that sun isn't going to hit the vegetables, and in certain months it's not going to hit this. So I've learned to move stuff around, right? So move it here, move it there, just because I'm watching the sun because I want my plants and my garden to grow. So which has nothing to do with, well, it has something to do, I think, with the stars because the sun is a star. The whole energetic pull and
you're paying attention.
I'm paying
you're
attention.
observing, you're seeing how the universe actually works. And like, to me, yeah, there's something to be said for when Jupiter does this and all that. I do think it has an effect,
Right.
perhaps more subtle than I was giving it credit, potentially, right? Because again, you can get sucked, because these folks that are usually into these arts are also themselves in tune. So like, they're way more reliable than your mainstream news guys or whatever.
Right. Which is cool to know people that are into. I have a couple of friends that they give me the whole loudoun, and I'm like, okay, that just went completely over my head.
Oh my god!
But I'm going to use all those forces for the good.
It's so, and that's it's the overwhelm of like, okay, well, what's practical? What can I take with me? Like, all right, don't sign a contract until March 20th. That's literally what I was.
What was they told you to do?
I'm like, okay, we're in the clear. We're in the clear on that.
We're in the clear. Everybody can sign contracts now.
Yes.
And buy this book. Thank you so much for coming over here. We'll have to do another one. We can get a little bit more into more esoteric stuff.
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure, as always.
Thank you.
Conversing with
Everyone,
you,
Austin Duran, we will put all his links on here. Buy his book and go to his workshops if you're in San Diego. He's a great teacher. Everybody that came to that class, everybody's making sourdough to this day. Yeah. We all have our little, sometimes they'll call us, how many grams of water?
I love it.
Yeah, but it works. So thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Tales of Recovery, and we'll see you next time.